Okay guys, so today we will discuss with the parameterized constructors. Yesterday we discussed about the constructors. What is the purpose of the constructor? The purpose of the constructor is to initialize the default values of the instance variable of a class, right? The constructor name has to be same as the class name. Okay. If we have not declared a constructor, then by default compiler will create a default constructor and assign the default values to the instance variable of the class. Okay, this is about the constructor and the default constructor. Default constructor, if you want to assign the values apart from the default values, if you want to assign the different values while loading the class, then we have to go for the default constructor. Let it be the default value. Then even if you not created it, constructor itself it will create the default constructor. Compiler at the time of compilation it will create the default constructor and it will assign the default values for the instance variable of the class. Okay. Now, and what is the purpose of the constructor? Purpose of the constructor is to assign the default values to the class. That is the reason constructor does not have return type. Okay. Constructor is also a special method. Method usually have the return type, but constructor doesn't have the return type. Why constructor doesn't have the return type? Because the purpose of the constructor is to initialize the values, not to do any manipulations, calculations, and send the return value to it. No, the main purpose, the objective of the constructor is to assign the default values to the instance variable. Okay. Parameterized constructor. Yeah, this is all we have seen yesterday. How the things will flow. Okay, the parameterized constructor has default constructor. We are not passing any values. If I want to pass a value to the constructor, like we have seen in the method, we are passing the parameters methods are correct. We have seen about the parameterized methods, parameters functions. So here what we are doing, we are passing the values to the method in the form of parameters. In the same way, in the constructors also, we can pass the values as parameters, like same as what we are used in the in methods. Don't confuse with the word constructor. Constructor is nothing but a method. Constructor is also a method. We say constructor is a special method. Why special method? Because it doesn't have some properties like normal methods. Like constructor doesn't have the return type. Okay. So constructor is also a method. So it will accept the parameterized objects. Okay. So if we create a constructor with at least one parameter in it, then we will call the parameterized constructor. If the parameter is accepting at least one value, then we say it's a parameterized constructor. Then how to pass the value? We'll pass the value from an instances of the class. We are creating instances and the object, right? By creating the instances of the class, we will be initialized with a parameterized value. Like we will see in an example so that you will get a clear idea. Okay, yeah. So this is the empty project. We'll see about the constructors. So what we are planning to do, we are creating the class. We will give to the class with parameterized constructors. Class name will go for the student. So this is a class, right? Public is an access modifier, class is a keyword, student is a class name. So here we will create first two instance variable. What is instance variable? A variable within the class outside the method. Okay, go for string like name and location. Here you create the constructor. Constructor will be the same name as a class name. The same name as the class name. Okay, the spelling was wrong. Okay. So you can see this is a method, right? When it is an opening and closing, you can understand it's a method. For the class, we are not using this opening and closing parenthesis. Whenever we see this opening and closing, it means it's a method. So constructor is a method. If we not passing any values here, it means it's a default constructor. For example, if I assign the value here, name equal to, then the value for the name is assigned with power, like the default type. Means what is the default value for the string is null. If you're not assigning anything, by default it will take as a null. I don't want null to be load. At the time of loading itself, I want a value. Then I will create a parameterized. So in this default constructor, I am assigning the values. Okay? This is a default constructor. If I didn't assign any value here, okay, it means it is going to take the null value. The default value, whatever the default value is there, that is going to be assigned. But here I am not going for the values static here. I am going for the parameterized constructors. I want to pass a value from the instance level. So for that I need to pass a variable from the main method. From the main method I need to pass a value, right? So from the main method, if you want to pass a value to another method, then what we are going to use, we are using the parameterized methods, right? The same way you will go for the parameterized constructors. String A and string B means 2. I need two values because I am having the two instance variable like name equal to whatever the value I am going to get, I will assign to A, and another is location. Okay, this is our class is created here, and this is the constructor is created, and this is not a normal constructor, it's a parameterized constructor. So whenever we creating the instance exception of the class, we have to keep in mind to pass the parameters. So student is the class, that is the class ODK underscore student. Here student. Okay, till now what we have practiced, we kept this as empty, right? We say this is a same name as a class name. Because of the same name as a class name, we are just saying this is a class and this is a class. But this is actually a constructor. Here we are using the class name. Here is a reference variable or the object, and it's a new keyword, and this is a constructor. Yeah, since the spelling important. Okay, so this is nothing but a constructor here. So that's the reason I'm now showing an error. Why it is showing an error? It is saying the constructor which you declared in the student class, it is asking for the parameters. It's asking for the value to pass. Okay, we'll pass the values now. Okay. So now here we created the instance of the class, object name, and we're passing the values to the constructors. So what will happen here? The constructor will be called automatically. Constructor will be called automatically once the instance of the class is created. Okay. Yeah. So what we are doing here, as soon as the constructor is created, the constructor is called automatically. The program starts from the main method. As soon as it will hit here, we directly go to the constructor. Here you will get the values what we are passing. Okay. So first we will see that the flow of the code. Yeah, press F10. See, it came to the main object. We'll see one more time. It came to the main. The always program starts from the main method. In main method, what we're doing, we created the instantiation of the class. We created the reference variable. We are passing the parameters to the constructor. Why we are passing the parameters to the constructor? Because we created the parameterized constructor in the student class. The two values we are passing. So what happens now? This value we have to access in the parameterized method. Are we getting the values? You can see here we are getting the values, right? Okay, and the value, the name we what we are passed from the constructor, like the instance level, the one we got, and the location we are able to see, means the values we can access here. The parameters constructor is working for us. Okay, there is a no output statement. It's not displaying any output. So we will write some output statement. Here we say name. So how to get the name? This we are seeing, right? The same now. So how to access the method or the variable from the class? Using the reference variable. What is the reference variable? Obj underscore student dot. We can garage. Show and error. It has to be internal. We make this as a public. Yeah, we can access it, right? And console, right line, location. Just student dot. We are able to access the instance variable of the class in the main method. Only we have to keep this as a public. Okay. So the parameters constructor we created, we are passing the values, and those values we are able to access in the main method with the help of the reference variable or object of the class. Okay. So for this, So now always program starts from the main method. So if you want to access, we have to create the method from main method itself. For the accessing the constructor or accessing the class, it always starts with the main program. Here we see that we are getting the values. I can go. Are we getting the same value here? Yes. See. Then the student, name of the student, what value we are passing at the time of creation, the installation, those values we are able to see. Those values we can able to see in the output window also. We got the steps. Okay. This is all about the constructors. Constructor, parameterized constructor is same as the normal parameterized methods. As we seen in the previous sessions, like how to use a method with the parameters, method with the different parameters. Same is applicable. We can pass as a string with integer with the string. For those we don't have any restrictions. The restrictions we have is that return type. In the constructors methods, we cannot use return type. It's not allow it. So we can say that when it is created, the object of the instantiation of the class and the constructor method accepting the two parameters, both are string. Okay. With this parameter, whenever we create the instance of the class with the required parameter, then automatically it is constructor will be called. We are not specifically calling the constructor, right? Are we calling any constructor here? Like obj student dot constructor, like a common method, how we used to call the methods. Like that we are calling anywhere we are calling the constructor method, we are not calling. Just we are passing the parameters values here. We are not calling the constructor method. Note that the compile time level itself, it will be constructor will be automatically called by the compiler. So that we have to keep in mind, constructor will be called automatically by the compiler. That's the reason it will say that the constructor name has to be same name as the class. So how to identify the compiler, what is the constructor you created? You may create another method right here. For example, you can see that public get school name. Okay, you created okay, string is going to return it. Okay, so it may get confused. We can create this, but if you want to access this method, we need to call it explicitly, right? How we will call that explicitly? So we can just go dot get school name. Here this method we are calling explicitly, but constructor will call automatically. Constructor will be called automatically by compiler. Okay, so here you can see, if you want to access this, if you want to display these values, then we need to call like this. But whereas case in the constructor we are calling it anywhere, no, just we are creating the instance of the class, we are passing the parameters. So then who is calling this? This is called by the compiler. At the time of compilation it will see, okay, class name is, and the method name is also same. If the class name and method name are same, okay, it will think it's a constructor, then it will call automatically. If it's a parameterized, then it will take the values when it comes to the new keyword, and when it comes to the instance variable instance of the class, it will accept the values and it will assign to the parameterized value, parameterized constructors variable. Okay, so we are not calling explicitly for the constructors. So constructors will be called automatically by the uh, compiler. Okay, this is about the parameterized constructors. Now we will see about the another conference. We will see about the parameterized constructor. We will see. Yes, I will copy this. I will keep and I will share in the group. Here with constructor overload. We have seen the method overloading, right, in the previous sessions. Same like that, we will see about the constructors overloading. So, what is the constructor overloading? What's the overload? Overload the constructor by creating another constructor with the same method name but with different parameters. Okay, it's all about the same what we see, what we are studying in the methods. We are seeing about the method overloading, right? Same method name, different parameters. Method name is ABC, we are passing only one parameter. Method name ABC, we are passing the two parameters, right? In the constructor level also, um, it will work same as it is. Okay. So anyhow, we are creating one parameters constructor, right? And we will create one default constructor here. Public student. It's a default constructor. Right, in the default constructor, I will assign the name as Ravi and location. This is okay, this is a now what is this? This is default constructor. Okay. And here what we are doing, we are taking the parameterized constructors. Okay. So here what will happen, we are using the parameterized constructor, then parameterized constructor will be called automatically. Yes. But I want to be called automatically for the default constructor also. For that we'll call separately. Student 1 is equal to so what is this? This is a default constructor. Okay. And what is this? This is a parameterized constructors, right? Okay. Yeah. Now we'll keep the debugger and we'll see which will call first. Obviously the default constructor will be called first because that we are initializing. So the default constructor called first, the value what we assign to this variable is name. The name what we assigned in the default constructor, like Ravi, location came Bangalore. Right. So again it will go to the same point from where it is called. Now we is accessing for the parameterized constructor. The parameterized constructor name is different. Pawan and Hyderabad. So you can see the instance variable, the name got modified now. Previously in these values we are seeing this default constructor value, like Ravi and Bangalore. Now we are seeing the names with what we are passing the values with the parameterized variables that we are getting Pawan and Hyderabad. Right? So it got the values now with the latest one. and we will see the same thing in the default constructor values here. So here you can see, right? Let's see this. Okay. Here, 6. Default constructor name. Here we will see the parameter constructor name. Means in output clearly we can understand which one is calling and what is the value. Okay. If you want to see in the debug command, debug it and see for the instance variable what we are assigning the values now. We assign the values from the default variable. Okay. So who is assigning here the values for the instance variable at the time of loading? At the time of loading, it is assigned by the default constructor. So it is declared the values, and we have created another parameters constructor with the same constructor name, right? So that's why we are saying about the constructor overloading. What the value we are getting here? The values got modified. The values are not same what we are assigned as in the default constructor. Here the values we are passing with the parameterized from the instance level. So the values got changed. Here we are using the output. You will see we will get the both the values. See, first we are getting the values from the default constructor. From the default constructor value we got it. In the private in the parameter constructor we got the another value. Okay. The same way we can go with the any number of parameterized constructors. Okay. If I want to create with the parameters of the 3 variables, then we can go for it. So now it's not showing an error. Means we can pass the 3 variables. We have to create another instantiation. After that we have to pass the we have to pass the 3 variables here, 3 parameters. Then this is going to hit it. You can see now this is calling one time from the reference variable. Sorry, this is calling one time from instantiation of the class from the default constructor, and this is parameterized constructor. This is calling one time. From where it is calling? It is from this here with the parameter 2 times. This we have created the parameterized constructor with the 3 variables, with the 3 parameters we have created it, but we are not using it. We are not creating instance of that. We are not creating the instance for this constructor. That's the reason it is showing the reference is 0. Okay. If I pass with the 3 parameters, then that will be then I will say it another one state I will add. Okay. I can create object 2. Just see. Okay, parameters constructor with 3 parameters. So what is another one? Another one will go for the state. Why it is giving an error? Because in the instance variable we are not creating the state. Create it. We have take. You can see first the default constructor, the value is different. State is still and blank because In default constructor, we are not modifying the, we are not using the state. And in the parameters constructor, we added same values and same variable name and location and like the default constructor, but the values are different. We have here we are passing the values from the from instance level. Okay, there we are sending the values to the constructor, parameters constructor, and we are creating another constructor. Means with the same name we create the three constructor. One is a default, one is a parameterized with the two variables, and another parameterized with the three variables, three parameters we are sending. So you can be able to access that we got the three values here. So we are declaring it, and you can see in the output window. Here we are using everything. Default constructor values we got it. We got it the parameters constructor only two. Just make it little bit neat to understand it. Okay, yeah, you can see here default constructor two values. You can see the value Ravi and Bangalore, but the parameters constructor the same variable name and location we are getting the different name, different values, because here we are passing from the parameterized. Here the same variables we are passing from the three parameters, location and state. Why the state is not displayed? We'll see it. State. Okay. This parameter we have third parameter, right? Okay, sorry, why it's not passing? Because this we give the copy paste. We are using the student of the previous reference variable only. Where the parameter two parameters are there, right? For this reference variable we are using, that's the reason we are getting the result of the two parameterized. But for the third parameters, the objective the reference variable is different from the that reference variable we need to call, right? Now you will get it the same. You can see for the three parameters values we are getting the three values. Yeah, it is assigning. Right. So here also it's assigning. Yeah, okay. So if you do the debug, you will come to know exactly where the issue is, what we are missing. What previously what we are doing, just we copy paste from the two parameters values. So the reference variable is also related to the two parameters, right? But here in the three parameters, the reference variable is different. So if you use the latest one with the three parameters reference variable, here we are going to access the latest values. Okay, here you can see now default constructor values, parameters constructor with the two parameters, and parameter constructor with the three parameter values, right? So this is about the default constructor, parameters constructor, and constructor overloading. Three things we can able to see in this example. This is a default constructor, this is a parameterized constructor, and this is constructor overloading. Constructor overloading same as the method overloading has been seen in the previous sessions, like normal methods how we are able to access with the different parameters with the same method name. In the same way, the constructor overloading also works. But only one thing we need to remember in the constructor is also a method, but constructor doesn't have the return type. There's a major change in the constructor. We cannot return the values. Constructor doesn't have return type. Why? Because the purpose of the constructor is to assign the values, assign the default or the parameterize the values to the instance variable of the class. That's the purpose of the constructor. Okay, if you want to do manipulations, if you want to do calculations, and you want to assign the return type, then you can go for the other methods apart from the constructor method. Okay. Okay, so we will stop here, and tomorrow we will see about the parameterized constructor and constructor training. We will discuss tomorrow. Okay. Okay, yes, thank you.